Okay, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. Today is the Tuesday, January 12th edition of the Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee, or virtual workshop. This is our, I forgot, we've had virtual workshops. Sorry, this is our second such virtual workshop. We've had virtual meetings since I think it was March or April. Let's go to the next slide, please. Guidelines. As of right now, based upon the participant list, we have 2 BPAC members present so far. There are no, they're not taking, as it's a workshop, it's not an official meeting, so there is no attendance being taken, but I just want to make sure that everybody knows after the record. As you can see on the screen, this workshop is being held virtually and is being recorded. If you experience any technical difficulties, please contact Lisa Warren at the information you see on the screen. You want to write that down from now. All attendees will remain muted throughout the duration of this workshop. If you wish to provide a comment, please use the raise hand button. Once you see your microphone unmuted, please proceed by providing your full name, agency represented, and so forth. As mentioned before, because this is a workshop, there can be no actions or motions permitted on this agenda. And all discussions have to be limited to what's going on the item. So there'll be no community comments or member comments and so forth. And any committee member deviating from these guidelines will be reminded as we go along. Next slide, please, Lisa. All right, here is our agenda. We have 2 items on the informational items. First one is going to be from DTPW, which is a Bus Express Rapid Transit Network implementation. After that, FDOT District 6 with Tiffany will be doing her project update for the month of January. And it's not on the agenda per se, but I'm just going to back up 1 second. Hank, if you don't mind, Hank Sanchez, if you can unmute yourself. You had mentioned before, but it was not being recorded, that you are not going to be seeking to be reappointed to the BPAC. So if you want, like I said, I just want to say for the record, thank you very much for the time and effort that you've helped with us here at the BPAC, and I know you're very, very involved citizen when it comes to bicycle pedestrian issues. So I know if you're not helping with the BPAC, you'll be helping in other methods. So I just want to make sure there was that on there for the record. All right, next slide, please. Go ahead, Lisa. All right, so this first information item is going to be the Bus Express Rapid Transit Network implementation. Francesca, take it away.
All right, thank you, Kevin, and thank you all for allowing us to join you this evening. We are coming really to get your feedback and talk to you about the Bus Express Rapid Transit, or BERT network. It's part of the Strategic Miami Rapid Transit or SMART plan. As you
hold on 1 second, Francesca. Is your volume on your end for your mic up? Because I can't hear you that well. Oh. I don't know if it's coming through.
Okay. All right, is this a little bit better?
Yeah, a little bit better.
Okay, I'll just project a little. I'm not sure how to change the volume. So good evening, everyone. Thank you for allowing us to join you. We're here to talk about the Bus Express Rapid Transit Network, or the BERT network. It's part of the Strategic Miami Rapid Transit plan, or SMART plan. Today with me, I'm Francesca Taylor. I'm with the Department of Transportation and Public Works. Today with me, I have our project team, which includes Odalis Delgado with Parsons, Peter Halliburton with Cambridge Systematics, Yvette Holt with Holt Communications, and then we also, I believe, have some participation with FDOT, some representatives from FDOT. I believe I saw Shireen out there in order to answer any questions you might have on their end as well. So today we're going to give you kind of a high level view of the BERT network, just some background, but we really want to focus the conversation on the pedestrian and bicycle impacts for the Julia Tuttle Causeway. So Dallas is going to talk us through that, and then at the end or towards the end, Peter is going to tell us a little bit more about the analysis that went on in this project. But first, to kind of lay the groundwork, the Bus Express Rapid Transit Network study began in March of 2019. And since that time, the county has really wanted to know how we can connect major origins and destinations throughout the county. So the purpose of the BERT network is to provide that point-to-point service to those major origins and destinations with quick frequencies. As you can see bulleted to the left, we're expecting frequencies from 10 to 20 minutes. And so the Bus Express Rapid Transit Network includes 8 routes. They will be using existing expressways, shoulders, managed lanes, and a technology called transit signal priority in order to help us maintain that travel time reliability. And of course, there will be limited stops in order to support that quick frequency. Our study included the 8 routes that but it also included an analysis of existing and proposed parking rides. And so for the parking ride lots, we had to do some environmental work as well. And we'll talk about that a little bit. So I want to kind of focus your attention on the right side of the screen that's in front of you. It has the map of the BERT network, and it helps to kind of illustrate how the BERT network extends and connects to the SMART plan. I want to mention that the BERT routes are lettered A through F3, and Route A is actually a flagler corridor, and it's under study by FDOT. So it's not included in the study that DTPW has been leading. But just giving you a high level of routes B through E2, as you can see on the screen, Route B starts at Southwest 344th and travels north to Dateland North. We expect that route to begin service in 2021. Route C actually began service in 2019, and it connects the Palmetto Metro Rail Station. You can kind of see that in the kind of central west part of the county, the Palmetto Metro Rail Station to the I-75 Miami Garden Station. That service has had to be suspended due to the COVID-19 pandemic, but we do anticipate that it will be able to return. Route D connects the Miami Executive Airport to the Dateland North Metro Rail Station as well, and we anticipate that service similarly around 2023. And then Route E1 connects Southwest 344th and travels a little bit further north to the Dolphin Station. And then lastly, E2 connects from the Panther Station all the way up to the Unity Station and kind of connects back into the SMART Plan rapid transit corridors. So we held a series of public involvement meetings in early December and really kind of did a deep dive into each of those routes. And again, today our focus of the conversation is really about bike and pedestrian activities and how that is incorporated or how that is influenced in this project. So we really want to pay close attention in today's conversations to routes F1, F2, and F3. So those are our beach routes, and really we're paying close attention to F1 and F2, which are Beach Express North and Beach Express Central. Those routes will utilize a strategy called bus on shoulder, where the bus can maneuver around congestion in order to provide that frequency of service that we mentioned earlier. So without further ado, I'm going to toss the presentation over to my colleague, Odalis Delgado, so that she can discuss with us a little bit more about where the route is for the route alignment for the Beach Express North and Central, and how it may impact the bicycle and pedestrian community. We want to get your feedback on those services. So Odalis, if you would mind taking over. And I think if we can forward to the slide that has the Beach Express North.
Right, and so let me just continue Francesca's overview of these BERT routes. So the bus express routes, if you all are familiar with what's running now on the I-95 managed lanes, those are point-to-point express routes, and there's several routes, you know, from the Golden Glades now, and from even out in Miramar, up by the Tri-Rail station in Fort Lauderdale, that basically start there, and they use the managed lanes to express into downtown. And the reason that these express routes are, one of the reasons that these express routes are attractive is because they're easy to implement, because you're using existing roadways, you know, so you have to do very minimal roadway improvements to get these routes on board. However, the reason that we're here is because of the 8 routes, there is, you know, these 2 routes that go to the beach that, you know, we're lucky enough to work with FDOT that has programmed money to help build these shoulders on the Julia Tuttle I-195 to run 2 of the routes, okay? So that is really, of the 8 routes that we have, these 2, because of this infrastructure improvement, are really the only ones that, you know, are more costly and take a little bit longer. And it just so happens that it potentially impacts a pilot project that was implemented along the Julia Tuttle. And so that's kind of why we definitely wanted to get the BPAC's input on these routes. So the first one is the Beach Express North route, and it goes from the Golden Glades Multimodal Center. It travels along the managed lanes on I-95, and then it goes just west a little to the Metro Rail station at McEarlington Heights, and actually that increases ridership significantly when we do that. And then it turns around and it comes east on the 112, and then I-195, the Julia Tuttle, continues through 41st Street to Collins. Then it goes up to the Fontainebleau area. There'll be one stop in that Fontainebleau area around 43rd Street. Then it comes south on Indian Creek. And if you guys know the beach, you know, there's the Indian Creek and Collins are a one-way pair there. So it comes south on Indian Creek, stops at 28th Street. And then we worked with the city of Miami Beach to identify an on-street bus area right behind the convention center area, so that we could have just a typical Miami Beach stop, larger stop, but the buses would not have a shelter or anything like that. They would just idle at those stops. So this express route will use the inside shoulders of I-195, and we'll show you some typicals of what that looks like, for the local buses to bypass congestion. So when the general purpose lanes are going 35 miles or less, it will be up to the discretion of the bus driver to then go onto the inside shoulder, use the shoulder to bypass the congestion, and then be able to you know, maneuver back into the general lanes when the congestion is lifted. Now that's the project that, you know, is a little bit more intense. The department is designing it and has program monies to build it. And so that takes a little longer and won't be implemented to 2023. So
is that on the, sorry, oh, never mind. I'll raise my.
Let me finish the slide, Charles, and then.
Of course.
So what happens is we coordinated with the city of Miami Beach and I think the commissioner of the district, and they were wondering if there was a way for us to be able to run bus on shoulder operations and run this BERT Express North route sooner than 2023. And so again, the DOT was very amenable to using the outside shoulders of I-195 in the interim for the 2 years that the inside shoulder is being constructed, to allow the buses to run on the shoulder and the outside again, to bypass congestion at the bus driver's discretion when the general purpose lanes were operating 35 miles an hour or less. And so we are working with DOT. I think DOT is going to let that project to improve the outside shoulders to be able to run this route sooner in 2021. The issue is that right now there was a pilot project that was implemented by DOT, consistent with FHWA support, to try out a bike lane on the outside shoulders. And so if you've been on the Julia Tuttle, there is bike lane on the outside shoulder. And so during construction of the inside shoulder for ultimate operations and use of the outside shoulder in the interim basis, the bike lane will go away. Okay, so bicyclists and pedestrians will not be allowed during the interim period. Now, in the ultimate, when the ultimate inside shoulder is used, is finished construction, then DOT and Federal Highway will determine whether to put the bike lane back, and FDOT is here if there's any specific questions about how that happens. But let's go to the next slide a minute. Next slide. So this is a park and, okay. I was just going to show a park and ride that is proposed at Mount Sinai. And again, this is very conceptual. We're still having conversations with them, but this would be an interim stop to serve this major employment center for both the Beach North and the Beach Central routes. So now go to the next slide. So the central route is from the existing Civic Center Metro Rail station. The buses would idle on street. There's no special bus shelter or anything like that there, but there would be wherever the buses congregate now. They would start at the Civic Center. They would take the 836, use the inside shoulders, and if you've been on 836, they're marked red now on the inside shoulders. Use the inside shoulders, go up I-95 in general purpose lanes, and then go on the Julia Tuttle. And again, in the interim, they would use the outside shoulders, hopefully in 2021. And then in the ultimate, they would use the inside shoulders to bypass congestion. They would interim stop at Mount Sinai Medical Center. And this route actually then would just go down Alton Road, no stops, to the same Miami Beach Convention Center area stop around 18th Street behind there for this route. So go to the typical section, which is the next slide, please. Next. Okay.
In case we want to enter.
Well, so let's just talk about the typical section, and that way they can ask all the questions now. So we are talking just about the Julia Tuttle segment, if you see the shaded area there, and for routes F1 and F2, which is central and north. And the buses can only travel up to 35 miles an hour on the shoulders, but the goal is to improve speed and reduce delay for the bus passengers. There will be signs and marketing and some highlights with trailers and so forth to make sure that everybody knows the new pattern for the bus operations, and there will be enforcement initially by the Florida Highway Patrol. So again, if you see the current typical section, that's Julia Tuttle, and there's shoulders on the outside and there's shoulders on the inside. So the current project that the DOT will let to construction in the near future is to basically restripe and reconstruct certain parts of the outside shoulder to allow the buses to run on the outside shoulders only for 2 years, basically, while the inside shoulder is being reconstructed to allow bus operations on the inside shoulder. So again, bicyclists will not be allowed to use the Julia Tuttle in the interim condition, and they'll be required to use alternate means to get to the beach. So this is kind of what the bus on shoulder operation will look like. And so if you have any, Charles, if you have any questions now about this would be good.
Thank you. I actually just I understand the Julia Tuttle easily. I get what you're doing. My questions are more on Collins and what's happening on the island. If you can go back a couple of
No,
slides.
on Collins, we're just traveling on existing roads and
No,
stopping.
like
at
dedicated bus lane or
existing
anything
stops.
on Collins.
No, sir. Mm-mm.
No. There's, I believe, a plan for a dedicated bus lane on
Washington.
also 17th, I want
Yeah,
to
that's a city project. The
Yeah.
city has a dedicated transit lane there. Yes.
Are we, is that, so I didn't forget, is the route going on 17 as well or no?
For a section, it will be because the stop behind the convention center is at 18th Street. And so we're actually going to turn around. We're going to do basically, we're just going to go around the convention center. So we'll travel on that transit lane, but very short period of time.
And then on Collins, I think the dedicated bus lane is planned for, I thought it was planned for Collins. Am I mistaken with that? Because Washington now is one lane with the separated bike lanes.
Right. So we'll talk about Collins in the next, about Washington on the next slide, but I am not aware of any dedicated bus lane project on Collins. I don't know if FDOT is.
I might be wrong. For some reason, I felt like I remember seeing that. Can
Well,
you go back to the,
I think that it's been studied, Charles, but I don't think it's been approved. Shireen, do you know anything about it? A dedicated bus lane on Collins?
Oh, Dallas, I do not
Yeah,
have the details on that.
yeah.
I don't know if Natalie, if you've heard anything. Natalie Garganta from DOT is also on the line.
I haven't heard anything about
Yeah.
You're
Charles,
very faint, Natalie, if you're talking.
it. I'm on mute.
Natalie, we can't hear you?
Can you hear me now?
Barely.
Little.
Oh, sorry. I haven't heard anything of Collins.
Yeah. Charles,
Okay.
I think that the city of Miami Beach has studied that in the past, but I don't think it's been approved.
I think the city and the city's plans, they've called just as almost like just an overarching like kind of idea for certain pieces of Collins to have a bus bike shared lane on Collins, but that's not something that FDOT has studied yet. But I think it's something that the city has put in their plans, but just for certain segments of Collins as you move, for instance, south to north.
Yeah, they have not officially requested FDOT to do any studies.
Yeah, it's just in their transportation plan. I can't remember exactly what that's called.
and then my other question is, so can you go back to the map of the two routes?
Yeah, let me finish with the third route first.
Okay.
So if you can go to the next, okay. So the final beach route is called the Beach Express South. And this is really, again, something that we've worked with the city of Miami Beach on the alignment and determining how we're going to proceed. But this route is really from the Miami Central Station downtown to Biscayne, and then it goes on the MacArthur Causeway in the existing general purpose lanes and Fifth Street. And then on Washington Avenue, is where there were plans to have dedicated lanes on the outside. We were going to take the lanes on the outside and to dedicate them for bus/bike. This was the typical section that was, I think, studied by the city, and the city and the county applied for grant funds to implement that typical section. And actually DOT funded it. And we were going to start scoping out the design of this project. But I think, Charles, like you said, there's been a change in the typical section out there in Miami Beach. And so we're trying to determine, what the actual typical section for Washington Avenue, will be in order to run this service. So based on that, we see here service anticipated 2023, but again, based on what happens on Washington, we may or may not meet that service date. So those are the three beach express routes. really are kind of, we wanted to talk with you and more so because of the impact to the bike lane on Julia Tuttle.
Yeah. Thank you. For the, it looks like, so there's gonna be bus express lanes on both Tuttle and MacArthur, which is this
No,
one.
there's no, on MacArthur, they're just running on
Some traffic.
regular lanes.
Okay. So what is so expressed
So
about this
let
one?
me just say, Charles, that the city of Miami Beach has wanted to use the shoulders of MacArthur like Julia Tuttle, but I think that has not been approved by FDOT at this time.
What is expressed about this then? I'm just not understanding it because it was using just
the
regular
express
traffic
is-
lanes.
Okay. Are you talking about this particular one? Beach
Yeah,
Express
is it just
now?
because there's limited stops and that's what makes it
Yeah,
express?
it's limited stops, it's expressways. And on the Julia Tuttle, you will be able to bypass congestion. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the whole point of using the shoulders. Yeah.
Yeah. So why, if this is just using regular, I'm just curious, if it's using just kind of regular lanes and it's not using shoulders and we're not really building infrastructure, why does it take till 2023 to start running these express buses if we think that they're important?
Well, no,
Like
I
what
mean,
has to happen?
right. So on the Julia Tuttle, no, we're going to start with the interim use this year, 2021. So that one, Natalie Garganta from FDOT, actually, who's on the line here, she is the PM for the project to improve the outside shoulders for the interim use of the bus. So that project is starting, this year. The inside shoulder is major reconstruction. You're majorly reconstructing the inside shoulder. So as I mentioned, most of these routes, besides money, Charles, most of these routes were minimal infrastructure improvements, road infrastructure improvements, but you still need the buses, right? And you still need, the service plan to be able to accommodate it. But the only major infrastructure improvement were really on the Tuttle for the inside shoulder reconstruction, and then on Washington Avenue for the dedicated lanes on the outside shoulder, on the outside lanes. And, right now that you have the 120 that, serves the beach. And that would, also run on dedicated lanes or shoulders if those get improved on this section. But again, on the Beach Express South, we were waiting. We got funding from DOT to do the Washington Avenue section, and so we were waiting to do the dedicated lanes on Washington Avenue before starting this service. That's why 2023.
And then just my one question is, did you explore going farther west? Because obviously the farther kind of it goes into the mainland, I think the more buy-in and the more use it'll get from people on the beach and people on the mainland. If it covers more places without having to switch from train to bus, people don't like to switch modes of transit, as you know. So was there an explanation of just keeping it going like west on Flagler, or just kind of really trying to bring more people into its service area?
Well, if you go back to Francesca's overview map, it really, it really was supposed to be an overlay, to maximize the premium rail transit with the bus transit. And so to minimize, any kind of transfers, but there are routes out west, but they don't go from west to the beach, because the whole point was, there are these other 6 rail transit corridors that are being implemented. And so the hope was that, you would have that intersection of the rail transit with the bus transit and make that one transfer to take you.
It was like a supplement to the trains, basically, to bring people on trains and get them out to various places.
Exactly.
Thank you.
All right, let's keep going. I think you have another 8 slides to go, Adana. So.
Yeah, so I'm done, and Peter will go now.
Okay.
Okay. Good evening, and hi Kevin, long time no see.
Yeah, same here.
Happy New Year to you and to everyone. Okay, so if we can, well, you've got your next slide up here, thanks. So these are the 5 steps in the analysis that we were focused on that sort of resulted in this network and implementation timeframes that Francesca has spoken about. So the next slide, please, shows the first of those 5 steps, the market analysis, which used a lot of data on people's existing place of work, place of residence, and also travel modes to create a socioeconomic profile for each of these 8 groups Francesca mentioned, and then further to use these data available to calculate a transit propensity or attractiveness, as Dallas had spoken about for each of these routes. And so the map here shows, you know, sort of one of those steps in that effort. The pink bubbles around the Golden Glades location at the north end of the Beach Express North route is the capture area for folks who would drive to that park and ride facility and then take the berth to the beach. Within the pink bubble area, there's a green area, there's a little more complex than a simple circle, and that is transit routes that are feeding into and connecting to that north end of the BERT route. And then even smaller within that is the capture area for folks who would walk and bike to begin their route. So together with all of that census data, we calculated a transit propensity for each of the 8 routes as shown in the table bottom left of the slide here. And, you know, somewhat unsurprisingly, the 3 beach routes, the F routes, are have the highest propensity due to, you know, both the densities of population and employment and the travel congestion making transit more attractive. The next slide then shows the outcome of that propensity work led us to kind of seed a service frequency shown in the table here for the peak hour and for the off-peak. So at the top there, Route B, the South Miami-Dade Express, has got 10 minutes peak hour frequencies, 30-minute off-peak, and those differ, as you can see, down the list of different routes. There's kind of 3 categories: peak hours of 10 minutes, 15, or 20, depending on those propensity results. The off-peak frequencies are also an outcome of the specifics of those markets and how transit travel is currently occurring within those markets. The next column shows the ridership estimates. That's from what's called the STOPS model. It's a Federal Transit Administration model used uniformly across the country. And I'll draw your attention to the ridership estimates for the first route in the table there, and then also F1, third from the bottom. We've got an excess of 8,000 trips a day in the base case. 2015 is the base year for that model. Those are very good ridership numbers and would be amongst the highest 2 or 3 routes across the county. And then the final column in this table shows the travel time estimate for the peak period, peak direction. So you can see there 75 minutes from South Miami-Dade, 344th Street, up to Dadeland North. Next slide then shows a little more detail on the technology Francesca mentioned, transit signal priority. So this is devices on the buses and at the traffic signal that communicate with each other, alerting the signal of an oncoming bus and ensuring that the maximum signal green is available for the bus to pass through. So if it is currently green for the bus, it'll extend that phase. If it's currently red for the bus, it'll truncate the alternate phase and advance a green signal to the bus to keep it moving. And that improves on-time performance and reliability, and also reduces operating costs for the transit agency. So works all across the board. The next slide is just some of the detail of the specific locations along each of our 8 routes where that transit signal priority will be deployed to minimize those delays and feed the bus through those traffic signals, improving reliability for the bird passengers. Next slide touches on an additional task in our analysis known as a Title VI equity analysis. This is a federal requirement to ensure that there are no disproportionate adverse impacts to communities that have higher instances of poverty, minority populations, and limited English-speaking populations. And the 3 maps on the slide here show the density of those populations, which within each census tract across the county, with the darker colors indicating the higher densities of those particular populations. Happily for us, the results of our analysis indicated that the communities served by this new BERT network have higher concentrations of Title VI populations than the county-wide averages. So they're positive rather than any negative impact to disadvantaged populations. Next slide shows the site improvements at these 5 park and ride stations in the BERT network, numbered in the map 1 through 5 and shown in the little table to the left. And there, the analysis was mostly focused on impacts from things like traffic flow, air noise, vibration, and visual impacts to businesses and residents. This analysis indicated, again, no adverse impacts. Most concern are noise and air quality impacts. We do, on the other hand, anticipate minor impacts during construction of these park and ride sites, but it is typical for those to be minimized and mitigated both by the county's department and any of its contractors working on these construction efforts. The next slide is my final slide and shows the proposed year of implementation for each of our 8 routes, which Francesca largely covered. Also, in the additional columns, we've got details on the equipment needed to run these services at those frequencies that I mentioned, and the resulting cost for that equipment, the buses, and also annual operating and maintenance costs to operate the services at those frequencies. So you can see those total to $70 million in capital equipment, $27 million annually in operating expenses. And we've also got in the final columns the capital cost for the construction of those park and ride facilities, summing to almost $17 million. So with that, I'll hand it back to Francesca, I think, but I'm certainly available to answer any questions on any of these slides.
Thanks, Ross.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
This is Eric Tover. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. One thing I'm very concerned about, and that is that since you're using the shoulders on I-195, and it's critical that the MacArthur shoulders not be used because the Venetian Causeway has had all kinds of bridge problems and may be shut down for 6 months or a year, and that would leave cyclists with no way to get to the beach. it's critical that the MacArthur remain open. I know you said that it would, but I think that needs to be pointed out that because of the problem with the Venetian bridges, we need the MacArthur to get to the beach.
Okay, that's excellent feedback. Exactly.
Okay. The second thing, I thought this was going to be on the SMART plan, but will these buses have level boarding, or will they just be the regular buses, where if you have to put your bike on, you have to put it on the front of the bus, etc.?
That's a great question. I can't speak to the exact technology that we're going to be using for the buses. Right now, we're anticipating that we will be using electric buses, and that at this point, it's hard for me to say that there will be level boarding. So I can't speak to that feature specifically, but I do believe that we will have bike racks for the buses that you can load.
Yes. Well, I provided a long email to Mr. Walford and to the DTPW representative on the BPAC, and I would ask that you seriously consider level boarding, because if you don't have it, it really messes up your schedule, because when people are trying to put bicycles on the bus, it takes so much time. And if there's no way to lock the bicycle, that means the person has to stand in the front of the bus to see their bike so they can be sure that it's not stolen. I realize this is a lot to think about, but if you're a bike rider, this is very important to you. The other thing is that the time taken to load wheelchairs or personal mobility scooters or strollers, etc., is also a problem. And so what I'm suggesting is to have an open area at the entry into the bus, like they had on the old Metrorail cars. And that worked very well, is a place to put all kinds of bicycles or scooters or wheelchairs, and it makes the entire system work much better. Anyway, I'll let you read the email that has all the details in it.
Okay,
thank you.
And I would say that the buses will be ADA accessible, so the wheelchair entry will be a feature of the buses. So thank you for your input.
Right, but if it's ADA accessible, that takes 5 minutes of time for the driver to do it. It's not really ADA accessible. It's ADA accessible, but then everybody else is disadvantaged. So it has to be level boarding is a priority.
Okay,
thank you.
Were there any other comments or questions on our presentation? Our contact information is on the screen for you. If you have any further comments or questions beyond today, feel free to reach out to us. We'll try to expedite and answer your questions as soon as possible. Do also want to, I guess, reiterate what Abelis mentioned, is that the Beach Express North interim service is scheduled for this year. It's very pertinent if you do have any comments or questions to make us aware of those things.
Hi, this is Shireen. I'm sorry, Kevin. I'd just like to thank Francesca and Odalis and Peter. Great presentation as always. And we're getting closer. We're getting really excited to see this service launch.
Thank you, Shireen. Thank you for your cooperation and collaboration in getting this project implemented.
Oh, this is a joint effort. It really has been.
Kevin, can you send this slide to all the BPAC members so that we know who to get in touch with?
Yes, and I'll send it, but it's also part of the application, the agenda package, but I will send this slide specifically.
Okay, I just got the agenda. I didn't get the package.
Okay. Yeah, the agenda on the email I sent out, just for everybody else, you have the agenda package, sorry, the email, the agenda package is where you clicked on the word BPAC, and then that opened up the entire 50-odd page agenda, so. Yeah, but there was also a single page agenda which attached as a PDF, just in case somebody didn't want to open the entire package just to get the information for the workshop. All right. Thank you very much, Eric, and thank you very much, Francesca. And I'm going to be forwarding you that email now from that Eric had sent. All right. Next.
Thank you, Kevin. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Nice seeing you again, Peter.
Thank you. Likewise. Have a good one.
All right. So we're going to go down to item number 2, FDOT monthly update.
Yeah, and I'm not used to going number 2. And I'm not used to only 2 items. Well, this is, I guess we get out early today, but well, maybe, I guess we'll see how much conversation comes out of the January 2021 update. And I just wanted to tell you, everyone, right now I'm really doing a lot of the presentations, at least I have. I'm just shifting kind of the workload around to where it's needed most. So I'm doing the presentation today instead of having our contract consultants, Janet Fleming, do it. So I'll be talking about, and what I'm trying to do now, because I've heard you guys loud and clear, and not just the 3 people that are the BPAC members that are here today, but everyone has pretty much been very vocal about wanting to be able to have an opportunity to make comments before the comment due date. So I'm trying to get ahead of schedule to give you guys some chance to give feedback before the due date. So with that being said, we can go to the next slide. And we can go to the next slide. You guys know these 2 things. It's the existing network and the proposed. And this is the proposed as in LRTP, not as in the bike network plan that's in production right now. So that's not that yet. So when that comes around, and I can't wait for that, we'll have that clear bike network plan on the page, and we'll be able to then see how we're adding to it within every single review period. Right, we can go to the next slide, please. Okay, so I'm outlining the ones that have specific pedestrian and bicycle, well, really bicycle improvements, but I did add the ones that I've outlined, the ones that have significant pedestrian improvements. So you can see here the Okeechobee road from east of Northwest 87th to Northwest 79th. This one is providing 5 to 7 foot bike lanes on the frontage roads with wide shoulders on Okeechobee. It's wide shoulders on Okeechobee, adding sidewalk on the north side of the frontage road. So this project is adding those 5 to 7 foot bike lanes on the frontage roads. So that's a nice, that's something that's actually an addition, an added facility. And then also we're adding the sidewalks on the north side of the frontage road, and specifically between 98th Street and 79th Ave. So you can see that one. That one's very happy to see that one. And then another.
Eric Toberg, one of the critical things is make sure that the bike lanes on the frontage roads connect. That absolutely. When they go under the turnpike or under some item, make sure that you can get from one point to the other without having to go on the main road.
Well,
okay, Eric, wait till Tiffany's finished, and then you can do your comments, okay?
Well, and I'm on that same note, though, I am noticing that there is, we've already talked about this last month, but it might jog your memory on the Northwest South River Drive, the bike facilities that are proposed from the town of Medley. Those might have a chance to connect to these eventually too. So we have to start thinking about how do we work that in? How do we make sure these things connect? So I've already made a note on that to the potential connections. I've got it in an Excel spreadsheet. So yes, the importance of connections. I mean, you guys know I'm trying to head in that direction. And then of course, I've highlighted this one. This is the Dixie Highway resurfacing from north of Southwest 80th Street to south of Riviera Drive. The reason I highlighted this one, we already know that it is parallel to the underline in that segment. What I'm really happy about is that we've gotten the coordination in the works to install the necessary crosswalks and crosswalk configurations that will align with the underline. So I'm really happy that within this project, we're going to be able to create those crosswalks that are necessary to fill in those intersections for the underline, so that it's less work and less funds that the underline needs to spend on those intersections. So I'm really happy that we can get those done, and we had that coordination. And then you can feel free to look at the other ones. The town of Medley, the water main improvements, I think that's a supplement to the other project that we talked about last month. But okay. And the other ones on the page, oh, we can go to the next slide. Here I'm clicking as if I can go to the next slide. Okay. All right. The City of Sunny Isles, they actually, City of Sunny Isles has actually come to us with, they have quite a few actually pedestrian bridges that they are looking to fund into the future, but this one specifically is at 90%, and it will connect the government center to the beach. And again, it's a pedestrian bridge. And in future slide, I'll show you the kind of image of what it's going to look like. And then all of the others are pretty much your typical. Sorry, my cat's playing with a toy. But yeah, you can see the rest of them are a lot of triple R projects, traffic operations, push buttons. So we can go to the next slide. Okay, and then this one, I'm really happy to see 4 of these items highlighted. So we can see that the State Road A1A, the Harding Ave, Abbott Ave, that one is going to have, so right now it already has bike lanes on it. It has 4 to 7 foot bike lanes, south on A1A from 74th Street to 69th Street. And from 96th Street to 94th Street, they have 4 to 5 foot sidewalks. However, we are going to add some enhancements to this. For instance, we're going to have a buffer, a bike lane with buffer parking. So buffer side parking. So you're going to have that door zone buffered out from 96th to 94th Street. And then we're going to have a bike lane with the buffer parking side again from 75th Street to 73rd Street. And then a 4 foot bike lane from 73rd Street to 69th Street. So again, it's going to extend the existing bike facilities a bit, and it's actually going to enhance some of the bike lanes that exist a bit by providing that parking buffer, so you can potentially avoid that door zone collision. And of course, they're going to have curb ramp updates, sidewalk repair, like we always do for ADA compliance. And then they are proposing, unfortunately, but we do have restrictions in some places. So they are proposing sheer markings north of 75th Street to 94th Street with signs. And then the Julia Tuttle, I brought up this one. You guys already heard of it. But last one I didn't know that presentation was going to be given. So I wanted to bring it to your attention that those inside shoulder or the use of the outside shoulders for the buses would go to the middle, and then at that point we may or may not, it still may or may not, we need to get reapproved if we wanted to add those bike lanes on the outside shoulder again, because that was a pilot, because that is a limited access facility. Okay, and then okay, we have the Northwest South River Drive. Okay, this is the one I thought I'd mentioned this in the previous month, but maybe you didn't. Okay, this has 4 foot bike lanes with green conflict areas from Northwest 121st Way to Northwest 116th Way. So this is a good project here with 6 foot sidewalks on the south side. And then Coral Way. This one's really close to home for me because it really is where I practically live on this road. This one will go from 12th Avenue to Brickell Avenue. It's going to go, so right now, currently from 12th Avenue to 15th Road, so pretty much just shy of where it goes under 95, there's currently a shoulder there. There's currently a marked shoulder for bikes. A lot of times, if you've ever ridden it, right now, there's some areas because of it's flush shoulder, the grass kind of goes into it, and it's kind of whittled the shoulder down to practically nothing in some locations. So we're going to, of course, in that section that I just described, that now it's called a 5 foot, but a lot of it's not 5 foot because of the erosion. But that's going to be actually enhanced to 6 foot with, it's going to be a buffered bike facility up until 95. And then we're going to have, if you guys remember, at 15th Road and Coral Way, it's going to have that roundabout. That, do you guys remember the in previous we proposed, well, we're bringing that 2-lane roundabout where the bike lanes will actually be converted around with a shared use path, and it's going to have the signals at the different intersections around the roundabout. Well, that's right there. And then after that on Coral Way, as you're going downtown Brickell, right by the Underline, right by, you know, right by Publix, that's going to be, they're proposing right now Sharrows. I'm seeing if we can do something else though, because personally, I personally want to see something else because of all of the high demand there, because we have the Underline, because we have the Metro Mover, Metro Rail, Metro Bus, trolley transfer station right there, because we have 2 bike shares. There's so many reasons that bring a lot of demand to Coral Way in that section. I prefer, I think we all could say we prefer something besides a Sharrow and an actual bike facility. So that's that one. So hopefully I'll have more updates on this one, because this Coral Way project is currently in scoping, so it's very early phase, very early stage. So this is our opportunity to try to get those enhancements that we really think are necessary. All right, we can go to the next slide. And again, this is kind of a breakdown of all the ones I've highlighted. So there are, I try to put in as much of this as possible, but this is kind of a table I work on and I want to add so I can get a good idea of what's possible on these different things. And also, when you start plugging in the AEDT and the number of lanes and the functional classification and the roadway speeds, even if you haven't ridden on this roadway before, you get a good picture of what it might be like. So if you're seeing, for instance, 40 to 45 mile per hour posted speed limit, and you're seeing, you know, AEDT of 86,500, you know that, wow, it wouldn't be comfortable to be a cyclist riding on that roadway. Yeah, so it's really good that when you look at that one in particular, that's the Underline. So that one's a completely separated facility, which would be absolutely necessary for a roadway like that. So I'm trying to start filling this out for everyone. So even if you haven't ridden on that facility before, you kind of know what if the proposed improvements match what the conditions would require, if you guys get what I'm saying. And feel free, if you guys ever want me to talk this through, if you have any questions about what any of these things mean, we can always discuss that at some point too. But this is kind of for my own analysis, so I can really make sure those proposed improvements are matching what the existing conditions call for. Okay, and then we can go to the next slide. Okay, so this is the Northwest South River Drive drainage and mobility improvements. This is the I believe the town of Medley this is their project, and this is those 4-foot bike lanes with the green in the conflict zones, and also the 6-foot sidewalk.
Why just in the conflict zones, and why not just green?
In the so currently the MUTCD and FDOT reads this very, very, FDOT's interpretation is very point blank on what the MUTCD states. And the MUTCD states that it is a traffic control measure to be used in conflict zones. So our interpretation of that is exactly as it states. And FDOT has not been willing to loosen up its interpretation.
Okay. Sometimes bikers get hit just on the straightaways too.
I know, I hear you. I hear you. Shireen, tell them how much I hear it.
Yeah, Tiffany and I spent hours talking about this. So the MUTCD is really for traffic control. So these are seen as warning that this is a dangerous area to both the cyclists and the motorists. So it's a warning type of device on the road, on the pavement.
It's not that I don't, because I mean, I can't help but, I mean, I hear you, I agree. And I push all the time, and I push and I push and I push, and I'm hopefully that pushing will just cave in. So when it finally does, hopefully I'll have something good to report. But until that point, I'm gonna have to keep saying the same thing and then keep leaning in and just keep annoying, keeping annoying to central office.
Yeah, Eric Toberg here. This is another example of where we could maybe think outside of the box and put the bike lane next to the sidewalk and have a protected bike lane.
I even thought, I think I mentioned this, I think this is the same exact project that I mentioned, that perhaps having, I don't know if it would be completely necessary to do, we might have an option here, if you guys just tell me what you think, but instead of having the bike lane on road, do I wouldn't want to say necessarily one shared use path, but I would say kind of like what Eric said, where you have, or even you think about the underlying configuration where they have a path that's for the pedestrians and a path that's for the cyclists, and it's clearly marked. I would almost like to, I mean, that might be something for them to consider so that it has that physical separation, and it also isn't mixing the pedestrian traffic with the cyclists. That's also, it's all about speed differentials, and when you're thinking about safety, you don't necessarily want to be mixing even, I mean, it's really not our ideal solution to mix pedestrians with cyclists if we're thinking about speed differentials, just like we don't want to necessarily mix cyclists with cars because of the speed differentials, because that's when our safety concerns come in.
Okay, it's just that as a cyclist, I feel safer on the inside of the curve, and it worked on Southwest 152nd Street from 147 to 157. Thank you.
I think yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah. Okay. No, I think we made that comment to the town of Medley as something to consider, because this is part of the SunTrail network. So this, if they had provided something like that, it could constitute as fulfilling that need for the within the SunTrail network. And Brett might be able, because this would be an extension of, I believe that's the extension of the Miami River Greenway. On South River,
great.
South River Drive through Medley.
When you had mentioned the, hey guys, Happy New Year. When you had mentioned the South River Drive project earlier, I thought you mentioned like 116th Ave or something, which would put it west of the Miami River Greenway boundary. Is this the same section or a different section?
This is it. This is 116th Way. This is way out. This is very out west. I think it's beyond what you're looking at, but this would be that potential connection to the downtown.
Cool. Yeah, I'm just focused up to the Salinity Dam at Northwest 36th Street, or even a little east of that. Actually, the MIC would be the furthest western terminus.
Absolutely. But ultimately, our goal here, I mean, I know you, and that's the thing. Everybody's working on their projects within their little silos, but my job here is and the TPO and the county is to try to make sure everybody's little efforts are all aligning in there. Because keep up the good work with your effort on that more concentrated area, but we're going to try to make sure they all connect ultimately.
Thank you, and I think you're doing a great job with the bigger picture, and thanks for all you do.
Thank you so much, Brett. I really appreciate it.
Good thing.
We can go to the next slide. Okay. And this is the Okeechobee Project. This is the one where the frontage roads are going to have the bike lanes added and also the sidewalks added. This you're seeing in these images, you're seeing the sign and pavement markings. So you are seeing the sidewalks, but the sidewalks are very faded. those little faded lines. Yeah, thank you for pointing those out. Yeah, because those are the sidewalks being added. But the in here it clearly shows the crosswalk improvements as well as the bike lanes being added. All right, and we can go to the next slide. Okay, and then this is what I was talking about with those intersection improvements to align with the new underline enhancements, I guess, or the creation of the underline, because currently it's the MPath. So this is what those crosswalks will look like. So we're taking, for instance, with the intersection with Southwest 62nd Avenue, we're actually really widening out those curb ramps to fit the needs of the underline. And we're also then adding, of course, those elephant markings that will be the crosswalk markings for the cyclists, as well as the enhanced crosswalks for the pedestrians. And we're also really widening out the openings in the median refuge island there. And as well as you can see, the curb ramps on both sides are really being widened out to accommodate the needs of the underline. All right, we can go. Yeah, go ahead.
Eric Tolberg here. One of the things you have to watch is the curve radius. A long radius curve is an invitation for traffic to drive very fast, which of course is inimical to pedestrians or bicyclists crossing this crosswalk.
I hear you. I hear you. And that's that. I'll make sure to. I missed there was a meeting with the underline the other day, because the underline and the consultant working with the underline specifically on the intersections have been coordinating the needs with the contract consultant that's working on this resurfacing project. So they're working together to fulfill the needs of the underline. So, but that doesn't mean those underline configurations are ultimately, I mean, this is what they have so far, but I'll make sure to discuss this and I know that by tightening up that turning radii, you slow traffic down, but you also, I mean, you know this, I mean, of your education and your background, but I know one of the big concerns with tightening up the radius on US 1 is the amount of truck traffic. However, I think I believe if you probably tightened up that turning radius there, it might still have the necessary radius for truck traffic, but that's something I'll definitely bring back.
Well, one thing can be done is a mountable curve, but you have to make sure that the mountable curve is not going to go over the toes of the people waiting to cross.
Absolutely, absolutely, definitely. All right, we can go to the next slide. All right, and this is the design for the City of Sunny Isles Government Center Beach Access Pedestrian Bridge. You can see here kind of the drawing. The stairway kind of curves around. It's going to be covered. It's still going to have, you know, nice ventilation. It's going to have an elevator in each, and I mean that's the design that's going to allow for cyclists to get up to the upper level. I mean, to be able to cross across. I mean, the comments that I continue to make are to see if we can get at least the bike gutter put in. Just I don't know if anybody else. You probably have seen it. If you've gone to the university station and used that crossing at the university station by University of Miami, and you've crossed on their pedestrian bridge, that actually has a gutter railing that's within the stairwell that you can, or if you haven't gone there, go there and check it out. I just have one criticism about it, but it's always a learning experience. But yeah, you can put your bike tire in there, and that way you can pull it up a little easier without having to bump up every single step. But that would be my major comment on this project. We can go to the next slide.
Yes, on gutters, There's one on Government Center in the main steps from the ground floor up to the mezzanine. Also on the elevators, make sure that there's easy access in and out with the bicycles.
Absolutely. And then this is the A1A, the Harding Avenue, Abbott Avenue project. And so you can see here that parking, the buffer between the bike lanes and the parking lane. Okay, we can go to the next slide. And this is near 73rd. And then of course, always and right now I'm about to, in the next, I think my first workshop with the northeast section of Miami-Dade County. And again, the workshops are intended to collaborate with the municipal partners and those that have jurisdiction of the roadways, so that we're all coordinating together. So that very first one is going to be held on the 21st. And again, that's with all of the municipalities as well as the county, but all the municipalities in the northeast quadrant of the county. So that one's going to be on the 21st, and then we'll have one every single week past the 21st until we've covered all 4 quadrants. And
is that 21 January?
21st of January. Mm-hmm. And again, these meetings, I mean, I would personally say I can send the BPAC members the invites. You can feel free to join in, but the purpose of the purpose of these workshops are to make sure that we are getting the input from the municipal partners and the county partners, because it's going to entail projects that would be under their jurisdiction. So they need to be a part of the conversation, and they also need to give us their input about feasibility based on what they've done already in the past, and also what they hear from their residents. So
you said you would send information out for that particular workshop to us?
Yes, the Northeast. And so the one, since you're in Miami Beach, yours is going for you, like the one that would, I guess, hit closest to home for you. That one's going to be held on, because we're calling that I think we're calling that the East Central, if I remember correctly. Let me see. That one is being held last, because that's going to be our biggest one. Because it's going to be downtown Miami. Well, it's going to be Miami, and it's going to be Miami Beach and the Coral Gables. And that one is on, yeah, that's the East Central, and that's going to be on Monday, February 8th.
Yeah, Tiffany, I believe when you sent that email out, the e-blast originally, I forwarded that to all the BPAC members, but I will send it again. It's not a problem.
Okay, and I'll send out the links
Thanks,
for registration.
Mhm.
Again, you can attend them, but the purpose of them is for collaboration with the county and municipal partners, so that their involvement is going to be essential, since they're the ones with jurisdiction over those roadways. However, I do encourage, if you're interested in listening in, feel free to listen in. And if you do have something to say, it's not, we can always, there's going to be a last portion of it that's kind of like a open forum. And at that point, you can provide comments on your personal experiences on certain roadways and where you believe it would be best. So there is going to be an opportunity to make comments. It's just at the very end of the workshop.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay,
All right. Thank you very much, Tiffany.
no problem.
All right, so that concludes the 2 items for this month's workshop, BPAC workshop. The next workshop scheduled for February 9th. As of now, it's going to be still in the same virtual format. We will see what happens and as that time approaches. Other than that, I think we're pretty much done. So thank you all for attending and participating. Stay safe, everyone. And the meeting time right now, sorry, the workshop time right now is 6:51 p.m. Good night, everyone.